I'm going to try to stay quiet because he looks so peaceful right now, but how can I? Because we're talking about Architects, man. Okay, we got to do a tier ranking, especially after Now the Sky, the Earth, and All Between is out, and me being a massive Architects fanboy, I kind of want to do a little bit of a fun tier ranking list, but also let's go through a history lesson with me and Architects that nobody asked for, but it might make for some good context because I've been listening to these guys since I was 19 years old, first discovered them through Hollow Crown. I even found this funny screenshot of MSN of me jamming out to the song back in the days when you can actually share music while you're chatting with people, you know, but it's a band that's always just meant a lot to me. I'm repping their merch at concerts. I even went to college where I had the lyrics of These Colors Don't Run with You Pigs on the shirt. I got a few stares with that shirt, man. But yeah, it's just a band that I absolutely love. They're a top 5 favorite band for me, and I really know their history. So I thought it'd be fun to go through a tier ranking list and including their new album. So let's not waste any more time. Architects, the tier ranking, that's enough chit chat. Now, the first album that we got here is Nightmares, and I'm going to be honest, I actually only recently checked this album out. It's the only album that I never listened to because it's Matt Johnson on vocals. I jumped into the band with Sam Carter on vocals, although I know the remix version of To the Death, which honestly I still prefer. This is still a cool record to hear because it's very similar to Norma Jean, The Chariot, those old mathcore bands. It's very raw, it's intense. It sounds quite similar to other bands that they're influenced by. It's a really strong debut, but especially in terms of their catalog, it's a C. Next up is Ruin, which I honestly feel like is one of the most underrated Architects records. There's a song here called Northlane, and obviously people know of Northlane the band. This is where they got it from. This is where they got their band name from. This record is so underappreciated in their catalog. It's mathcore. This is where Architects started finding their sound a little bit more, but the low tune guitars and also a lot of the more shreddy moments that feel a little bit Dillinger and some parts maybe like Botch. This is just such a wicked record where Sam is really using lows pretty much majority of the record, which I really appreciate. Also, you got songs like Buried at Sea, Hunt Them Down, You'll Find Safety. Always, there's so many good tracks. Heartless. I feel like even the ending track is not talked about in their catalog. Save Me is such a wicked closer. With all that being said, it's an easy B tier for me, man. This album, again, is so underappreciated. Seriously, check it out if you haven't already, if you like the idea of a really heavy, deep sounding Architects record. Next up is Hollow Crown. This is the one that put this band on my radar and made me fall in love with the band instantly. The chaotic, relentless energy, the tuning that is similar to Sixth, a band that they were influenced by too, which is a band that I really enjoyed. Just that UK intense metal, but also riffs that are very like Dillinger Escape Plan, but then it's also very punky, like Comeback Kid. This is such a wicked mix of hardcore punk. With melodic emo elements similar to Under Oath, but then also mathcore like Dillinger Escape Plan. This has been always one of my default gym records, always one of my default records that just hype me up because of the intensity. I cannot stress how good this album is and how underappreciated it is, because when Architects fans talk about all their favorite albums from them, it's always Lost Forever, Lost Together, All Our Gods Abandoned Us. Bro, Hollow Crown. A lot of people who can't get into Architects, who are really into heavy stuff, heavy music, they need to check out Hollow Crown and just listen to the intensity of this record. Early Grave is a banger. Numbers Count for Nothing. Inelegance, which is more melodic and emo. We're All Alone. One of the most underappreciated songs is Every Last Breath. No one talks about that song, but that song has such an awesome punk groove with a very melodic bridge with emphasis on tremolo picking. emphasis on tapping runs that are on Follow the Water with these gain chants. This record is everything I loved about the scene back then, but just done so fucking well. Hollow Crown is also a great closer. Yeah, with come on, this record is goated. All right, the Here Now. Yes, I put it too fast. So after falling in love with Hollow Crown, I was anticipating their next record, just thinking, man, I can't wait for Hollow Crown 2.0, and I did not get that. This was one of the most polarizing records in the scene, in the underground scene, because Architects was not well known, unfortunately. But the Here and Now went into a different direction and really leaning towards post-hardcore. Very similar to Alexis on Fire. Every time they pushed us aside. It was a good record, and I remember enjoying it, but it's just not what I was looking for in the band. They did a really good job with it. Some of the songs like Learn to Live, Day In, Day Out are great. I still love those songs today, but back in the day, I was very underwhelmed, especially after Hollow Crown. But this album has aged well. Everything just fall into place. If you reject the one you love, you'll find yourself. If you reject the one you love, you'll find yourself. This is still a really, really good record, and it's a bold decision for Architects to try something so different pretty early on, especially when they were getting some hype in the underground scene with Hollow Crown. This is another overlooked record. Again, it's aged really well within time. B. Solid release. Next up is Daybreaker. I remember when I heard Alpha Omega and just that intro riff. It blew my mind. I'm like, Architects are going back to the heavies from Hollow Crown, but also mixing some of the post-hardcore from the Here and Now. This seemed like a good mix of both of those records. But man, I did not know the amount of variety. When I first heard These Colors Don't Run, it was like the heaviest thing I ever heard. It's still the heaviest breakdown that Architects has ever written. You fucking pigs! And that ending is just massive. It feels very sixth or something with the tapping runs, and then the low tune G sharp tuning is just so monstrous. This is all on 6th string too, which is something I appreciate about the band. But when they go soft with Truth Be Told and Unbeliever, they're just such beautiful songs that are so reminiscent to Thrice as well, which is one of my favorite bands, or my favorite band actually. Another standout is actually Devil's Island, which I believe is the very first song that they teased for this record. And I remember just loving the political energy behind it and the emotion within the song. This record is the perfect blend of post-hardcore Architects with metalcore, a little bit of mathcore, a really diverse record. Also has the Thrice cover of Dust and Nations. Also has this really good hidden gem called Untitled. A, baby. A. Easy A. Not quite on par to Hollow Crown's energy and intensity, but this record is so emotional and I love the variety within it. Now it's time to move on to Lost Forever, Lost Together, which Architects hones in on the metalcore elements, a little bit less post-hardcore and focusing around the gent and the atmosphere. When they dropped Naysayer, say what you like, I know what I am. In that intro that felt kind of Dillinger with the blast beats, and then we got into that genty groove and the Sam's more singy screamy style. I'm like, holy shit, Architects is flexing. And then Broken Cross came out. Bro, Broken Cross, is still one of the most legendary Architect songs. The lyrics also convey so much anger and passion, which is something I always liked about Architects, but it also has this bleakness kind of feel to it. And it doesn't help that we also got a little bit of a hint to Tom Searle's health with the song Cancer, but spelled C-A-N-C-E-R. But such a well-rounded record that showed the atmosphere within the band, especially with an album closer like The Distant Blue. But then we also had solid songs like Colony Collapse, Castles in the Air. But seriously, the two standouts for me are Naysayer and Broken Cross. But this is another easy A for me. Now moving on. All Our Gods Have Abandoned Us.
Tell me what's it a weapon to watch your kingdom grow? Never stop this slow.
When I first went into this record, I actually didn't love it.
Boo! You stink!
And that is an extremely hot take because this is considered the masterpiece among the fan base. The thing was, since I've been following this band since 2009, when they dropped this album initially, I remember just thinking it was too similar to Lost Forever, Lost Together. And sonically, it still kind of is. However, it only took 3 months later or so for the news of Tom Searle's passing, which totally reshaped this album's theme and lyrics. I had no idea, just like every other fan, of Tom's health. And after hearing about his passing, it's so easy to go back to Gone with the Wind and just understand what this song and this album is about.
A sickness with no remedy except the ones inside of me.
This is truly one of the bleakest albums in metalcore, but it's also one of the very rare albums in metalcore, or even metal in general. There's something so unusual about someone singing about their inevitable death and writing music around it. Now, obviously, Sam is singing Tom's words, which is also just this extra nuanced layer to everything. That Sam has to sing the pain and the despair that Tom was feeling on this record. And then for the last song on the record to be called Memento Mori.
Memento Mori, be mindful of death.
Swan Song refers to a final performance or effort before death. It's just a heartbreaking album, and it's very consistent from start to finish, the atmosphere and the feeling of this record. But this is truly one of the bleakest, saddest records that I've ever heard, and it's truly one of the saddest, bleakest records in not just metalcore but metal, period. Because of all that, when people say this is their magnum opus, I agree. S tier. This album is above Hollow Crown in terms of its meaning. There's not many records that have this kind of sad irony surrounding it, that there's an inevitable passing and death. And it's like you're looking into a part of time of someone's nihilistic despair and lack of hope. Truly one of the best records in metalcore. It's an easy masterpiece. Now, before moving on to the next one, I do want to say Hollow Crown actually gets more plays out of me because All Our Gods is a little intense emotionally, where Hollow Crown is just banger, intense, riffy city for me. But All Our Gods is in a different level because of the context. Now let's move on to Holy Hell, which is the first record after Tom Searle's passing. It's also weirdly the album that put Architects on the map, because before All Our Gods Have Abandoned Us, they were known in the metalcore groups, but then they became a household name in the metalcore scene and even like metal scene. It's kind of unfortunate that's the way that the band kind of got recognized, but it was such big, sad news. But it's just kind of a weird thing that happened. But at least Architects finally got the recognition that they deserved for years now, actually. Holy Hell is an interesting record, but it's using a lot of the same riffs, a lot of the same lyrics, where the band had to kind of just complete the music on their own. You have one of their best songs on here, Doomsday, which is just an incredible tribute to Tom. And then you do have the singles like Royal Beggars and Hereafter, which are really good, but I felt like the songwriting on this album started to get a little bit less progressive and less interesting for me, and kind of took a step back into something a little bit more basic structured for me. There's a lot of repeated moments here, and I do feel like the reliance on the sing scream was a little overdone on this record, that it didn't necessarily blow my mind.
Now the ocean is
Now I know that's a hot take because a lot of fans consider the trilogy of Lost Forever, Lost Together, All Our Gods, and Holy Hell to be the perfect trilogy. Holy Hell unfortunately didn't click with me because the songwriting wasn't as interesting, and there was a lot of, again, repeated sing scream moments, but the emotion behind it, the production, and the power and some of the breakdowns and riffs really do hit. It's a solid record, but it's in the B tier for me. Then afterwards, For Those That Wish to Exist really showed Architects becoming a whole new band, where Dan really took over the songwriting. Animals, although wasn't a true proper metal song from them, it just had so much punchy rock energy with the soothing, almost like Deftones-y kind of chorus, not in terms of the sound, but in just the feeling and the seductiveness around it. It's still one of Architects' best songs, and definitely one of their best songs post Tom. The rest of the record was a little bit of a mess for me. Now, I know a lot of fans do love a lot of the hookiness and the catchiness, but as someone who's been listening to them since Hollow Crown, I felt like the elements that I loved about this band, the emotional metalcore, the intensity, the progressiveness, the riffs, were all absent in favor of these big rock choruses, huge emphasis on production and extravagant song ideas, where this album is very creative, but also leans into a lot of generic tropes. The lyrics and the rhymes feel very generic from Sam. The production is starting to sound more robotic and less human, and the album just feels like a random collection of a whole bunch of random ideas rather than a cohesive piece for me. This album has to go in the C tier. But moving on to the classic Symptoms of a Broken Spirit.
Deepfake.
This is one of the most polarized. I was going to say one of the most polarizing, but I think this is the general consensus, is that this is one of the weakest Architects records. Now, coming off of For Those That Wish to Exist, they really just kind of doubled down on that sound, but it's even less inventive and engaging when you have songs like Tear Gas, which is one of the most corniest songs that Architects has written. But then you have some decent tracks like A New Moral Low Ground. Deepfake does have a solid breakdown. It just felt like Architects without the elements that made the band so special in their early days, but rather than going for octane radio rock. And although there's some creative elements, it does feel disjointed, just like For Those That Wish to Exist, over reliance on extravagant production and a little bit generic vocal lines. This album is my least favorite Architects record, so it's the D tier for me. I tried getting back into it, but just like For Those That Wish to Exist, even with the open mind, I'm trying to see if I can rank it higher, but with Architects' really, really incredible catalog, this album just does not have the spark. Now moving on to present day 2025, we are moving on to The Sky, the Earth, and All Between, and this album has that spark. We were getting blessed with singles like Seeing Red and Curse, which honestly didn't really wow me. It was cool that they were going heavy, but something didn't feel authentic to me. Then we had Whiplash, which was growing on me, and then Black Hole. Black Hole was the song that made me realize, okay, Architects is actually doubling down on the heaviness, but they're getting creative with guitar solos, choruses that really fucking bang, and the technicality from Dan's drumming. This was the Architects that I kind of fell in love with back in the early days, but it's their new style, almost like radio rock, anthem-like choruses, but with metalcore. It's a good hybrid of old Architects and new Architects. And after listening to the album and hearing that majority of the songs are actually good, I am very, very surprised with For Those That Wish to Exist and these classic Symptoms, that they were able to take things that were kind of working in those albums, but actually refine it with really clever hooks and vocal lines, a little bit less extravagant production, although there's a little bit too many auto-tune effects on Sam's vocals when he's such a great vocalist that it's not necessary. Songs like Brain Dead that really feel like that classic punk elements that you heard in Hollow Crown brought back into 2025. And collaborations with House of Protection and Amira, which are very, very cool artists to work with. This again is Architects finding that spark in an album that I truly, truly enjoyed. I'm going to put it in the B tier. It doesn't hit the same kind of highs that I got from Daybreaker, Lost Forever, Lost Together, Hollow Crown, and All Our Gods. Those albums mean a lot to me. Even going back, those albums are ageless. They're going to continue to age like fine wine. So maybe The Sky, the Earth, and All Between 10 years from now will rank higher. But yeah, it's a good record, man. So this was fun. It was fun to go through memory lane, and yeah, Architects, I'm so stoked for their future after their last record being damn enjoyable. Let's keep that momentum going, boys. But that is my tier ranking. I'm curious to know how you rank these albums, so comment down below. Spice up my life. Yeah, guys, how would you rank these albums? The tier list is actually linked down below if you want to do it yourself. Feel free to join the Discord and share your tier ranking if you want with the community here. But I appreciate you guys for hanging out, watching me gush over one of my favorite bands. So hopefully you enjoyed it. But on that, thank you.